reading a sequoia tree. I remember when we visited and looked at those trees out in California. I think I read on one little signs that one limb can build a whole house. That's how big those trees are. And you look at that diameter, 3/4 of the length of our sanctuary from the front of the platform here. I think the circumference is 120 feet around it. Is that right, Dana? Where are you at? What's that? 102 feet around it. These trees are massive. And there's actually a road going through, and it's no joke. You can drive through those trees. They're impressive. And for those little ones that don't know exactly what 500 to 800 gallons of water is, that's a hose running for about 2 hours on an average garden hose. So much water they drink every day. And I remember reading when we were there that they can take up to 1,500 gallons a day. I'm sure it's not known exactly, but it's a massive amount of water. And to think that those trees were 500 years old, roughly, when Christ was on this earth is pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. This morning, my sermon is kind of developed out of a couple different inspirations in my life. Partly an appreciation for the religious liberty we have, and partly also the inspiration from stories I hear from people that I talk to and ways that God has led in their life. And so today we're kind of going to blend those two and hopefully all leave a little bit more encouraged and recognizing the true unique period of time that we live in right now, and with the desire that we will not continue to take that for granted, because it is a special time. I also want to point out, which I'm sure these two people are going to be thrilled, but a former member of our church, where's Bev Posler? Saw her earlier. Bev Posler, longtime member, is here visiting, and somebody else that I'm sure is going to be just thrilled, Sandra Larson, or Sandra McCullough. Sandra, who's sitting here by Aaron and Cindy, is actually responsible for Dana and I meeting each other. She's the one that introduced us, so Sandra always is going to be a hero in our life. And thanks for coming and visiting and for introducing us. So, let's pray. Lord, I pray that as we look back through history, look at what's going on now and what we have available, that you will inspire us, impress on our minds, lead us and guide us, and ultimately bring us closer to you, that we will be prepared and ready for you when you come. In your name we pray, amen. It was back in the early 1900s, about the time when Henry Ford was just starting to spit out cars on the... Turn on mic. You guys can't hear me? How about now? Look at that. You want me to start at the beginning? Everybody says, please no. Just get this over with. It's back in the early 1900s when Henry Ford was just starting to spit out cars, and a woman by the name of Virginia Hall was born. It wasn't too long after this time that our world was cast into turmoil that we probably haven't seen since then and probably will not see again until the end of the time, and that's the two world wars. And as she was finishing high school, just as the Great Depression was getting ready to start, she came from a very affluent family, which means she had every opportunity that most people did not have. And yet, Virginia Hall was not satisfied just to take what was given to her, but she wanted a little bit more. And so she went to study over in Europe, in France, and in Vienna, to continue her studies. And while she was there, she learned French, she learned German, some Russian. She was multilingual, could fit in any group of people anywhere. And her talents led her to want to do some work that was kind of exciting. And so she applied to the organization that became the CIA to work for them, but was denied mostly for the fact that she was a woman, and women didn't do that type of work at the time. So she was able to get a job with the government in the U.S. Embassy, and was working in Turkey. And in 1933, when she was taking a little bit of time with some American friends, she went bird hunting and did what you should never do and climb a fence with a loaded gun. And that gun discharged, and she shot herself in the foot. had to come back to the United States and had an amputation. As time moved on, she ended up with a prosthetic. We have pretty good prosthetics this day and age. Like if you have a below-the-knee amputation, you can play basketball, you can ride motorcycles, you can preach a sermon, you can pretty much do everything. Some limitations, but you can do a lot. But back then, they weren't as good. They were made out of wood. It says the thing weighed like 7 pounds. She had this 7-pound leg that she carried around. Well, her desire to do spy work, detective work, this exciting phase of work, never left her, even though what became the CIA wouldn't hire her. And she was at a social gathering in Europe, and this person approached her and by listening to her talk, recognized that she had a lot of talents in her life. And so this person just handed her a business card and said, hey, if you ever want to do something, give me a call. And so she followed up on that and ended up becoming the first female spy for the British intelligence as World War II was definitely around 1940 was flaring up. And she originally was driving ambulance for the French army to help people get out, but obviously once the Germans took over France, that was not an option anymore. So these female spies of World War II, and there were lots of them, roughly 400 and something of them, although Virginia Hall was the most well-known. They took advantage of something that male spies could not, and that's that they were unsuspecting. The Germans didn't immediately see a woman as an intelligence threat. And she went through the training, was flown in on a moonless night, completely dark, and parachuted by herself down into France to start her work. She was very crafty in what she did, and because she had this prosthetic and walked with a limp and used all that to her advantage, she was able to take advantage of a situation that many people could not, and use what was a challenge in her life and use that to her advantage. By the time she had been there for quite a long time, the Germans finally caught on to who she was, and she became a marked woman. And she knew that she had to leave, that she couldn't stay there, because once they knew who she was and her cover was broken, she had to move on. So she walked in November with a Spanish guide 50 miles through the mountains to escape. And it's kind of, I read here that she was dubbed by the German Gestapos as the most dangerous of all Allied spies, a woman with no leg. Once she had escaped to a safe place, she radioed to her superiors in London to report that she was okay, and she had nicknamed her prosthetic Cuthbert, or however you say it, Cuthbert. So she radioed that Cuthbert was giving her trouble. And the deadly serious reply from the British headquarters, which mistook Cuthbert for an informant, read, "If Cuthbert is giving you difficulty, have him eliminated." Once the war was over, she eventually did get a job with the CIA and retired at the mandatory age of 60 as one of the most decorated spies in the history of the CIA. What's most impressive to me about Virginia Hall is that she took her disability, her disadvantage, and used it to her advantage. The fact that she had a limp was a perfect cover for what she wanted to do. She had grown up in an affluent home, but wanted to do more than just take what was given to her. And she used the opportunity that she had to help the Allies in their eventual victory over Germany. This morning, going back about 6 months ago, I was talking to a couple people in our congregation about their story of how they came into our church and what it was that brought them in and how they found out about things. And so this morning I want to talk to a couple people in our church. I have some chairs set up, and I'm going to ask Matthew Savula, or Meister as everybody calls him, and Anthony Carey to come up. They have a very interesting story. You guys can come on up. A very interesting story And we'll spend the majority of time this morning sharing that with you.
Good morning, Greg.
How you guys doing? Thank you so much.
Is this thing on?
Yeah, I think we got them on, unlike me. Just got to find my questions here. All right, so you guys, there's people that are here today that know these two really well, and some that don't. So if you know this about these guys, we'll get to some more new information. But you guys are both loggers. Tell us about how you got into forestry work. Like what got you into it?
We were both born into a family that was already doing it.
Okay. And so did you, when you were 10 years old, did you know you wanted to be a logger, Anthony?
I knew I was going to be a logger. My great-grandpa was a logger, my grandpa's a logger, my dad's a logger. I'm going to be a logger.
Okay, so this was pretty much set in motion for you. Were you told you had to be a logger, or was this something that you wanted to do?
I believe that you was strongly encouraged.
Okay.
Here's logging toys, you just get almost brainwashed. This is what you're going to do.
Okay, how about you, Meister?
Yeah, I was about the same.
So tell us about yourself. What were your early years like? Like, what did you like to do as kids? What were your hobbies? Did you like school? Did you hate school? Just tell us about like your early years.
I can tell you that Matthew loves school.
No, I hated school. I was usually trying to build something or working with Grandpa on something.
So you've always liked to work with your hands?
Yep, always had to stay busy.
Okay. Meister, did you grow up with any religious background at all?
I was a Lutheran for 20 years.
Okay. So was your family a Lutheran family?
Yeah, the entire family, the Savula family is Lutheran.
Okay. So the roots run deep in your family for Lutheran. How about you, Anthony? Did you have any religious background growing up?
What we did, not going to say that I wanted to be a part of the church or do anything with the church. My parents pretty much had to drag me there.
They pretty much what?
Had to drag me there.
Had to drag you there. Okay. Al's a pretty strong guy, so it's probably effective, huh? Nice. So you went to a non-denominational church growing up?
Yeah, we went to the Covenant Church.
The Covenant Church over by?
Out of Stevenson.
Stevenson area, okay. And Meister, where did you grow up? Where was home for you?
Home was on 577 over by Kearney.
Okay. So you both grew up in about the same area. And how did you guys meet each other?
When I was 18, I started working for Matt's dad,
Okay.
and I also lived very close.
Okay.
And that's how me and Meister got to know each other.
And what's your age difference?
I'm 25.
And I'm 32.
Okay, so about 7 years. So at that age, that would have been 18 and 12, roughly. Perfect. So let's talk about your journey from the time when you kind of decided you were going to be a logger until the time where you first started learning about the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Like, what were your interests? What were your goals in life at that time?
Just work and buy toys.
Work and buy toys, huh?
Yeah.
It's kind of how it is for all of us, huh? How about you, Anthony? You have any? When you started working at 18? What were your goals in life then?
I can't say that. I don't know, just like everybody else, just go to work and try to make a living and get going in life.
Okay, so just getting life established, getting your feet on the ground on your own, because as we all learn, we've all learned, or there's some people learning now that, when you go from, being a teenager in your parents' house to all of a sudden you got to pay for things like, I don't know, gas, insurance, electricity. You find out there's a lot of expenses in life you don't expect, right?
Yes, very much.
Okay. So Anthony, where did you go to high school?
I went to Stevenson High School.
Okay, and Meister?
I was homeschooled all the way through.
So all the way through high school?
Yep.
From first grade through 12th grade?
Yep.
Perfect. So then let's move into, so you grew up Lutheran, you were going to non-denominational church when you were young. When you started living on your own, did you go to church at all?
No, I did not.
So when you were working for Matt's dad, you were not attending church at all?
No, I probably went 10 years, and then my parents went to the SDA church, and they asked me to go. I went one time shortly after it burned down, and I couldn't have made more jokes about it.
So you went before the church burned down?
One time.
One time, so you showed up and the church burned.
Correct.
How about you, Matt? When was the first time that you came to this church in either the old church, gym, or here?
I started in the gym probably right around Christmas time of 2020, right before the virus, really a couple months before.
Okay. And what, Anthony, you said your first time you were encouraged by Alan Angel. Meister, what brought you the first time?
Anthony kind of got me going. Where it really started, I started listening. He got me started on Strong Tower.
Okay.
And then he kept telling me about out here, and then eventually I came out here one Saturday with him.
Okay. So Anthony, then how did you get on? You mentioned that Anthony got you on Strong Tower Radio. Anthony, how did you get started on Strong Tower Radio?
I got started on Strong Tower Radio. I wasn't going to bring this up, but every morning at work, I would listen to the Bob and Tom show.
We talked about that this week.
Yes, we did. That show got discontinued, and it was a morning show, and I would be seeking on the radio, looking for something else to listen to. I come across Ranger Bill. Ranger Bill was on Strong Tower Radio, 90.9. I would listen to that, didn't like the show afterwards, find something else to listen to. Eventually, later, what's on that station later in the day? Tuned in, started listening to different programs. Me and Meister were working together, ended up finding some good programs, and shared them with him.
What kind of programs do you mean that are like good programs? Like what did you like?
Evangelistic programs. I think it started with possibly John Lomaking.
So sermons.
Sermons.
Okay.
But they're more like a big series
Okay.
of them. But it took a little bit for me to listen to them.
Okay.
There was
You had to build up to that.
much building up, because in the morning it was Ranger Bill, but then later on there was like a story hour, which was Daniel Boone, I believe, was the first one that I'd listened to.
Okay.
Very much sparked my interest.
Amazing how you can remember that first story, huh?
Yeah.
Daniel Boone. And so, Meister, then Anthony told you he'd been listening to the Strong Tower Radio. What was your thoughts on it when you first, because were you really doing anything religious in your life besides, I assume at this time you were like barely out of the house, like barely of age, like 18, is that correct?
Yeah, I was probably still living at home. I just went to church with mom and dad in the Sunday morning, and that was it. That was all.
Okay. And so when Anthony mentioned to you about this Strong Tower Radio that he was listening to, what were your thoughts on that?
I thought it might be kind of interesting. It would sound kind of cool to listen to something other than just straight music 24/7 in a skidder.
Yep.
So I'd give her a shot.
Okay. So being that you guys are attending pretty much every week, you're baptized, what kind of brought you from that point where you first started listening to you wanted to be here every week?
Just religious awakening was big. The Sabbath was a huge one. I'd always had a lot of questions on the Sabbath, never had a decent answer for any of it, and then I heard different evangelism series on the radio there, and eventually I heard a few of them on the Sabbath, and I was ready to go.
Okay. And Anthony, you were baptized in this church, is that correct?
Yes, I was baptized in this church, but it took probably 4 years.
Okay.
It took a while to get my ducks in a row.
Perfect. How about you, Meister?
I have not been yet. We are planning on this summer sometime when the lake warms up.
Perfect. Be a little chilly right now,
Yeah, I'm
for
not going
sure.
yet.
Well, we're looking forward to that. So, this idea of becoming a Seventh-day Adventist, you've been attending for a long time, so even though you haven't been baptized, you're considered like part of this church because you're here every week. doing things with us, coming to different, events besides just church. But this idea of becoming a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, I'll start with you, Anthony, first. Were there any worries of your community or your family rejecting you? And if so, how did you work through that?
My parents were already attending the church, so that wasn't very difficult.
So it was encouraged, obviously.
It was very much encouraged
Yep.
to attend. If anybody knows me at all, I really don't care what other people think all that much. So it wasn't very hard on that end.
Okay. How about you, Meister? Tell us stories about coming here instead of the Lutheran church. How did that go over with your friends and family?
I had pretty strong opposition, but I was my own man. I could make my own decisions, and I did.
So your family was not in favor of it?
No.
Okay. How about any friends?
My friends they're more cool with it. They don't care.
Okay. And tell me about, I remember when I was talking to you in the past, you mentioned about Holly, she's working at the nursing home today, or at Cedar Hill, but what was her response to all this?
She was curious. She was willing to see what I wanted to check out, and she likes it here too.
Perfect. So then, it sounds like this timing for you guys of coming across Strong Tower Radio was somewhat providential, as you had to have been looking for something different, right?
Very much so.
So how did that, do you feel like this was providential? And if so, do you think there's other ways that you would have maybe come to accept the truth or want to become part of the Seventh-day Adventist community?
It probably wouldn't have happened in the timing that it did if the program wouldn't have been canceled, because I would have never come across Strong Tower Radio.
So you would have kept listening to the Bob and Tom or whatever the programs that came along after that. Perfect. Okay. So there's a verse that says, all things work together for good for those who love God. What do you think of that verse?
You can see it happen every day almost.
You can see it happen. You guys have anything else you'd like to share? Let everybody know about you, who you are, anything about you? Your process of getting into part of this church?
Not part of, no, there's
Okay.
nothing.
All right, well, thank you guys so much. I've been inspired by the story that Anthony Meister, that they've shared today, and as talking to them, and I'm going to go over some reasons why as I close here, but I really appreciate you guys coming up and sharing today.
Thank you.
I don't think either of you grew up doing public speaking, is that correct?
Not at all.
Not at all. But being willing, saying yes, to, I'm not going to say God's calling because I'm the one that asked you. But I will say that when you feel like something that you need to do, these guys are a great example of stepping up and getting that done. So I appreciate you guys coming up.
Thank you, Greg.
I'll take your mic. So I just want to close. One of the things that I'd like you guys to walk away with is we talked about Virginia Hall earlier in the service, and we talked about the disadvantages she has, but how she turned those into an advantage and used opportunities that she had at the moment to help with the cause of defeating the Nazis. Many times in our lives, we take for granted the things we have, such as if you grow up in a house that everybody gets along, for example. You just kind of assume that's how it is for everybody, but that's not how it is for everybody. Or if you grow up in a home as a missionary, you just kind of maybe take for granted that your parents are evangelistic. There's many different ways you can look at this. But I know that that we miss opportunities and don't use our time as well as we could to use the resources that God has given us to be successful spiritually. And so I want to spend the last little bit of my time this morning just going through different resources that we have available. And this is just like a micro percent of all of them. But I think by looking at this and kind of kind of taken a fresh look that there's lots of resources that we have right on our phones or tablets. I'm just using my tablet because I can see it, because unfortunately one of the natural consequences of aging is that you can't see small things very well anymore. And so this is bigger and it's brighter, and that's to my advantage. So I just want to review through some different apps that I have on my phone that I would encourage you guys to either put on yours or use similar ones, but to not just assume that forever we're going to have this available to us. We all know that as things get tougher, there will be more restrictions and we won't have this available. And the knowledge we gain now will be in our minds for the times when we don't have it. So first of all, the app that I use the most, which I like using, is the Bible app. And part of the reason I like it is because it's on a bright screen, but also you have available literally almost any version you could want. And there's some people who are like, oh, I like the New King James Version. Boom, got that. Oh, the King James Version is better because it's the original language. Boom, you got that. Some people might be saying, well, I kind of like the Message Bible. It's on here somewhere. I like the Message because it kind of reads in a way that I can understand. It kind of breaks it down for me. Or I like the English Standard Version. So anyhow, Bible app is nice for that because you can look at all the different versions. If you're in a Bible study and somebody shares something, a different version, you'll look at it. So the Bible app is a great app to have on your phone. Audioverse. This is an app that I know Dana has spent plenty of time in, and is a great, if you have like a favorite speaker. Let's say that you like, who knows who the author of this quarter Sabbath school lesson is? It's Mark Finley. It's like, I kind of like that guy. I kind of like him. So let's see what Mark Finley has on here. Mr. Mark Finley. There's him and his wife, so I'm going to go on here. And there's like 350 different talks that he's put on here. And you can look at like the most recent ones, see all the most recent, and pretty much anything. Search by topic that he may be speaking on. Lots of great resources on Audioverse. It's free, and that's available. Then there's, of course, a Sabbath School Quarterly. This is what I use every week, and part of the reason I like it is if you have it on a bigger screen like this, you can have your verses right over on the side, on the right side there, and so you can read the lesson, and when the verses come up, you just tap on it. Boom, there they are. On the memory text this week. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. So I like using the quarterly. Some people like having the old paper in front of them. That's fine too. But this is with me all the time. It's with me at work. It's with me wherever I go, either available on my tablet or my phone. And the Sabbath School Quarterly app is really nice for that. Then some of the ones that are have some more videos and stuff, these three here, Hope Channel. I don't know if anybody watches Hope Channel at home. We used to get it on our satellite dish, on that 18-inch dish. We thought this was really cool. You could get it anytime you want, streamed all the time. But now everything that's on the Hope Channel is available through the app. And like here's a great little series here. The great app is frozen. All right. 5 good reasons. 5 good reasons why you should this. 5 good reasons why you should that. There's also the Hope Sabbath School. I know a lot of people like watching that. That's available. Then we're going to move to, hands down, by far my wife's favorite app, and that's It Is Written. Spends a lot of time listening to It Is Written, and that's a really good thing. One thing that I like that It Is Written gives us is every word. It's 1-minute devotionals, and every day it emails me at like 5:50 or 6 o'clock in the morning, pretty much when I'm getting ready to drive to work. Just a short little tidbit. And we'll listen to that here if it works.
Wouldn't it be something if being a child of God assured you of avoiding hardship? It's not even a great question, as God wants us to focus less on this world and more on eternity. Romans 8:17, and of children then heirs, heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together. Paul says that as God's children, if we suffer with Jesus, we'll be glorified together with him. One of the most remarkable things I've ever seen is my wife, right after giving birth, forgetting all about what she's just been through because of the joy of taking our new baby in her arms. The return of Jesus will be like that. You'll go through some stuff here on this earth, but when Jesus comes back, all of that will be forgotten. We'll look away from this earth and we'll focus on Jesus and his return. I'm John Bradshaw for It Is Written.
So that gets sent to me every day. Sorry, that little lag there you saw between his mouth moving and the sound, that's not normally there, but I'm going through multiple devices, and so that's the way that happens. So another thing on It Is Written that Dana is, that I've listened to a bunch of them, but Dana has listened to all of them, is these conversations. And if you ever just want you may not want like a sermon per se, but the story of someone who either has an inspirational life or is a leader, there's just gobs, and they're basically interviews, similar to what just happened here, where you can learn about different people. There's Mark Finley's on here. It's just on and on and on. And these are really pretty interesting. They're high quality interviews. For those of you that like gardening, if you like gardening, this one right here is a great one to listen to. This guy owns a seed company, Heirloom Seeds, and he has built a business purely on seeds. I started kind of doing it as a hobby, and that's became his business. This is a super interesting conversation. Amazing Facts, there's another app, great app for them that has anything you'd want to listen to. If you want to listen to a Revival and Reformation series, it's there for you. If you want to listen to some kids programming, it's there. And the last one I'm just going to show you is the Ellen White collection here, where pretty much anything she's written is available right there on your phone or tablet. If you wanted to read on the Desire of Ages, boom, there it is, chapter 1. Information's right there. I love the hard copy versions of everything, but it's also nice to have digital things available. So the takeaway today, we live in a time where we have enormous freedom. We have enormous freedom to the point where we don't realize how free our life is. We don't realize how free our life is. When Wisconsin Academy was here 2 weeks ago, one of the girls that was staying with us just kind of mentioned her ethnic background, and I recognized that as Rwandan from back in the genocide from the 90s. And her family went through that. Her dad has a stab wound. His wife died in the genocide. One of his sons died in that genocide. And in the 90s, we were worried about if Bush or Clinton was going to be the president. And that kind of filled our life up. And they're losing people by the millions. So we live in a time of great prosperity and freedom in this country. The takeaway message for today is let's take advantage of that, and let's not waste the opportunity we have to learn and to fill our minds with things that will draw us closer to God, so that when he comes, that when we enter the time of trouble and when Christ comes, we aren't wishing we had done things differently. So, Lord, I just thank you so much for the resources we have, for the opportunities we have, for the religious freedom that we've been able to grow up in. And I do pray that we will not waste that opportunity, that we will take the advantages that we have and to not only better our lives, but better the lives of those around us. In your name we pray, amen.